Many of our most intense emotional attachments are not rooted in the present moment at all. They are relics of the past, shaped by wounds we never fully understood. When a person finds themselves deeply connected to someone who cannot return their love, who offers them nothing in return but distance or emptiness, that attachment is rarely about the other person. It is about something much older, something forgotten but not gone. Carl Jung observed that our early experiences, particularly those in childhood, form the unconscious patterns that govern our behavior. If a child grows up emotionally neglected, if love is withheld, inconsistent, or conditional, that child doesn't stop seeking love. They simply learn to associate love with absence. The psyche begins to equate longing with connection, pain with meaning. And in adulthood, it recreates these dynamics. Not because they are good, but because they are familiar. This is not a conscious choice. No one deliberately seeks out a partner who cannot meet their needs. But the unconscious is powerful. Jung believed that what we fail to make conscious will continue to shape our lives, disguised as destiny. So we fall in love with people who cannot love us, not because we're broken, but because we are trying, often desperately, to resolve a wound that was never our fault in the first place. The tragedy is that what you interpret as love is often the repetition of suffering, and until you face that suffering, not repress it, not romanticize it, but truly confront it, you will remain entangled in patterns that drain your spirit. The wound is not your identity, it is your origin. And the moment you stop looking for healing in another person is the moment you begin to become whole on your own. When you fall for someone who cannot love you back, it's easy to assume the attraction is about them. Something they have, something they represent. But in Jungian terms, the truth is far more intricate. Much of what we call love is projection. We unconsciously cast parts of ourselves, especially the disowned or undeveloped parts, onto others. What you find so magnetic in that person may in fact be an aspect of your own psyche that you've been unable or unwilling to integrate. Jung taught that the psyche is always seeking wholeness, and one of the primary ways it does this is through projection. If you feel powerless, you may be drawn to someone who seems confident. If you feel emotionally numb, you may be captivated by someone who radiates intensity. But it isn't them you're in love with. It's the quality they awaken in you. A quality you long for but haven't yet claimed as your own. The danger lies in believing that this other person completes you, that they possess something you lack. This creates dependency, idealization, and suffering, because the reality never matches the fantasy. And yet, that fantasy is a powerful teacher. If examined consciously, it reveals exactly what you must reclaim from within. To love wisely, you must stop chasing what you've projected and start understanding why you projected it in the first place. Who is this person really? And who are you seeing them as? These are not always the same. When you recognize that you are not incomplete, but rather unaware of your own inner wealth, the need to seek it in others begins to dissolve. You're not missing a piece of yourself. You've simply forgotten where you put it. And love becomes less about longing and more about awaking. There's a paradox at the heart of human longing. We often crave most intensely what is least available to us. The more distant, withdrawn, or emotionally unavailable a person is, the more magnetic they seem. And while this appears irrational on the surface, Jung's work offers a deeper explanation. The unconscious mind is not guided by logic. It is drawn towards symbols, repetition, and unresolved conflict. If, in early life, your emotional needs were denied or inconsistently met, your psyche may internalize a belief that love must be earned through suffering. You begin to associate love not with safety or nourishment, but with striving, waiting, proving your worth. So when you encounter someone emotionally closed off, your unconscious recognizes the pattern, not as danger, but as home. There's something eerily familiar in their silence, their distance. It mirrors the original wound. This is why emotionally unavailable people become so captivating. Not because they possess some rare quality, but because they unconsciously reflect back your inner sense of lack. The pursuit becomes less about connection and more about validation, trying to convince yourself that you are worthy of love by convincing them to love you. But this is a trap, because it keeps you locked in a loop where love always feels just out of reach. Jung believed that healing requires bringing the unconscious into awareness. When you realize that your attraction is not love, but reenactment, then you can begin to choose differently. You can break the cycle not by trying harder to win the unavailable, but by turning inward and asking, why does this feel like love to me? Not all intensity is intimacy, and not every longing should be followed. Sometimes, the most profound form of love is the one you give to yourself when you walk away from what continues to wound you. The pain you carry is not a weakness. In fact, it may be the very source of your strength, if you are willing to face it with honesty. Carl Jung understood the paradox of transformation, that what wounds us most deeply can also become the foundation of our awakening. He called this the archetype of the wounded healer, the idea that the healer is not one who has escaped suffering, but one who has journeyed through it and emerged with wisdom. When you love someone who cannot love you back, when you continue giving where there is no return, you are not just caught in a bad relationship, you are standing at the edge of your own unconscious pain. That person becomes a symbol, a mirror reflecting the parts of you still unmet, unheard, unloved. But this confrontation is not without purpose. It is the psyche's attempt to bring you into contact with the parts of yourself you have long ignored. The wound is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of inner work. If you stay stuck in blaming the other person, if you continue to fixate on their inability to give, you miss the deeper invitation. To ask why you chose them in the first place, and what they awaken in you that needs healing. Jung taught that wholeness comes not by avoiding suffering, but by integrating it. Your wound does not define you, it reveals you. It reveals where your love has been misdirected, where your energy has been lost, and where your attention now needs to go. The healing doesn't happen when they finally change. The healing begins the moment you realize the person who most needs your love, your loyalty, your forgiveness is you. There comes a moment, often in silence, often in exhaustion, when you realize that no amount of giving will ever make someone love you the way you need to be loved. And in that moment, the illusion begins to fracture. What you called love may have been something else entirely, a disguised form of self-abandonment. Jung was clear about this dynamic. When we are disconnected from the self, we look outward for the affirmation we cannot yet give ourselves. We become dependent on the emotional responses of others, especially those who withhold affection, because their approval feels like salvation. But true healing begins when you reverse that movement, when you stop reaching outward and begin returning inward. Instead of chasing love, you begin asking, am I showing up for myself? Am I giving myself the presence, the attention, the dignity that I so desperately seek in someone else? This is not a call to become cold or closed. It's a call to become whole. The more you abandon yourself in pursuit of another, the further you drift from the center of your own being. Jung believed the task of individuation, of becoming who you truly are, requires facing the inner split. You must see clearly the parts of yourself you've sacrificed to be accepted, and then begin to reclaim them. You are not unlovable because someone failed to love you. You are not broken because they couldn't see your worth. What needs to change is not who you are, but what you tolerate in the name of connection. The one who truly loves you will never ask you to betray yourself. And the moment you stop doing so is the moment you step out of the wound and into your power. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. Once you see the pattern, once you recognize that your longing for the emotionally unavailable is rooted not in love, but in the repetition of an unresolved wound. You cannot unsee it. And this is where the real transformation begins. Jung believed that consciousness is the path to wholeness. When you become aware of your own darkness, you are no longer controlled by it. You begin to choose rather than repeat. This doesn't happen all at once. At first, awareness can feel like loss. The loss of a fantasy, the collapse of an illusion. But what you're really losing is the part of you that needed suffering to feel alive. What takes its place is something quieter, but infinitely more powerful: discernment. You start to recognize the difference between chaos and chemistry, between intensity and intimacy, between wounding and love. And here's the paradox. Once you begin to love consciously, once you see clearly what you've been chasing and why, you no longer feel pulled to those who can't meet you. They no longer carry the same magnetic charge. The spell breaks, because the wound they once touched no longer defines you. Jung taught that wholeness is not found in another person, but in the integration of your own opposites, your light and your shadow, your longing and your strength. The people you choose after that shift are not those who complete you, but those who complement the fullness you've already cultivated within. So love, not as a remedy for your pain, but as a reflection of your healing. Choose not who reawakens your wound, but who honors your wholeness. And above all, remember, the love you truly seek will never ask you to abandon the self you've fought so hard to reclaim.